Guys, and welcome to Week 7 of the Pagnotta Take on Sports. And this week, we're going to be doing our NBA draft breakdown with the draft looming tonight at 7 o'clock in Brooklyn. There's a lot of storylines that we'll get into. We'll definitely start with the mock draft. And then once I get through the mock draft, then I'm going to talk a little bit of the trade rumors that are going around right now. And we'll talk just a little bit about some of the upcoming free agents as we move through the mock draft as well. You know, coming into the draft, there's a lot of storylines, a lot of highly talked about teams coming in, I guess you would say. Some of the more valued franchises in the NBA are up near the top this year, with the Lakers and the Knicks headlining those groups up near the top. So, you know, there's definitely a lot of people wanting to talk about this draft. There's a lot of interesting prospects that we've got. We've got guys that could be potentially some of the best players we've seen in many, many years, or they could be busts. So we definitely have to look at a lot of these guys, and hopefully, these teams that are at the bottom are able to get some of these these young players, and they're able to come in and help these teams out. Never wish for a bust, but we've seen it plenty of times before. And we'll start with the number one pick. Number one pick over the past couple of years usually has been a good landing spot. Andrew Wiggins last year was selected by Cleveland, ended up being traded, of course, to Minnesota for Kevin Love. But, he worked out pretty well in Minnesota. Anthony Bennett, the year before him, complete bust. One of the worst players I think I've ever seen that's been selected number one. And I am a Knicks fan, and I watch Andrea Bargnani, so that's saying a whole lot. But, I think this year, no matter who Minnesota takes, they're going to find a good prospect. A lot of debate between whether or not they'll take Anthony Towns, whether they'll take Okafor. That's been the debate pretty much the entire time since the lottery. But now another name has snuck up there, in D'Angelo Russell, the point guard from Ohio State. But I think ultimately, when it comes down to it all, and they've already rumored that this has been told, Chris Bouchard already rumored this from ESPN, that Anthony Towns have been told he will be the number one pick. I have him going number one overall. I think they definitely want someone in Minnesota to take over and take over that inside that post position that was locked down by Kevin Garnett for so many years. Of course, they brought him back. And if KG does return for another year, which they haven't said yet, I think that would be a perfect person for Karl Anthony Towns to learn from. It doesn't matter a whole lot, because Anthony Towns has his own skill set, and Karl Anthony Towns is a great player in his own. I mean, he has a great offensive game. His defense is good enough. There's still some things he can build on, of course, being a true freshman as he came in this year. The upside on him is pretty high as well, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But the offensive side of the ball, he is that traditional post player. He will get down in the post. He can bully you inside, and his shooting range is actually very, very good, especially for a guy of his size. That's, I think, what many people are really banking on with him, and I think he's the best prospect in this draft, no doubt. And I think Minnesota would love to get him in there and give him a chance to play with Wiggins and to play with some of these other young guys that they've had in there. I mean, I don't think he's going to be right away as good as Kevin Love was, but he'll get up there, and I think he'll be playing somewhat at that level pretty soon, within a couple of years at least. And so with him off the board, we move to number 2, the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, this might be the most talked about pick in the entire draft, because there's so many ways they could go with this draft pick. The initial thought here with Anthony Towns off the board would be Okafor, of course, to put him down inside. But there are a lot of people that are trying to use Julius Randle as the issue. They're saying, well, they both play the same spot. Technically, no. If I drafted Okafor here, I would probably move him to center. I would probably have him play center, and I'd keep Julius Randle at power forward. Now, there are other rumors that are saying that they're trying to trade, potentially, Julius Randle, and I think that could be another way to go. I would rather have Okafor over Julius Randle, for two reasons. Randle did have the injury, of course, last year, and I do think that Randle is he's not really that superstar player, nowhere close to what Okafor is going to be. inside. So they could do that. Of course, D'Angelo Russell would still be on the board, and a lot of people talking about that. They do need a point guard that could fit in there very well because Jeremy Lin just is not the long-term solution at all. So I think he could definitely be someone to look at there. I think Russell is a great player. I think he actually is the second best player in this draft. I take him over Okafor. Just because he's that talented, and he's a scoring guard, something that we've seen with Stephen Curry. That's going to win championships. Now I'm not saying he's anywhere close to as good as Stephen Curry. He's a different player than Stephen Curry, but he could be a guy that the Lakers definitely need to look at and consider. And the third guy that the Lakers have been rumored to be talking about is Kristaps Porzingis. He's a player from Latvia. He's a power forward. The dude's 7'1", which means he's automatically built defensively because he's so tall inside. Now, he is a thin guy, so he's going to have to put a little bit of meat on his body in order to be able to get down in the post against some of these NBA-type centers and power forwards that he's going to be playing against. But he's got the potential to be really good. He's got a great shot. Some have actually compared him to Kevin Durant in a way, which I don't know if there's any comparison there. He's a power forward, first of all. And just from looking at him, he does not look anything like Kevin Durant. He doesn't have the ability to score like Kevin Durant does, and I wouldn't expect a power forward to have the ability to score like Kevin Durant does. A perfect power forward is someone that's going to score like Tim Duncan. That's the type of scorer you want, a guy that's going to get down in the post and just bully you all night. But at number 2, I do have the Lakers taking Jahlil Okafor. Being a North Carolina fan, I've seen a lot of this kid. I watched some of his games, and of course he went all the way to the national championship, so you had to sit there and watch this guy play. He's a good player, definitely inside. Inside he's a great player. He can bully you inside the post. I think he's better than Anthony Towns down there at using the body as an asset for him. He's gonna beat and bang on you inside. Defensively, he's kind of the same as Anthony Towns. There's potential there. He's not great, but I do think he's got a better chance to be a better defender than Karl Anthony Towns. He can block a little bit better than Anthony Towns. We've seen that. So I think he's got the potential. The only knock on Okafor, and this is a big knock, especially with what they've been doing today, unless they put a rule in to go against it, is his free throw shooting. That could be one of the potential turnaways for teams from Okafor, just because at the free throw line, he is a liability. He was shooting somewhere, I think at one time during the tournament, he was under 50% for the season, which is just not good at all. You can't have that from a guy that you're going to be relying on, especially in the post and with the way he plays to get to the free throw line and make free throws. So hopefully he's able to correct that if he does, wherever he gets his chance. And if he's able to correct that, he might become the best player in this draft. But that's going to be a hard thing to fix because, I really do think that free throw shooting can be improved a slight bit, but you're either born a good free throw shooter or you're born not to be a free throw shooter. So hopefully, I think I have him going 2 to the Lakers, which means we're on to number 3, the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, this is an interesting pick because now, with Okafor and Anthony Towns off the board, it pretty much means that D'Angelo Russell would be the favorite to go here. Now, many people would think, of course, if Okafor or Anthony Towns is there, they would take them because D'Angelo Russell will be gone in one of the top 2 positions, and they would take them to put them down in the center with Nerlens Noel and who else did they get? I can't remember who else they have in the post. I'll probably remember it as we go along here, but if they could get someone inside like that, boy, you just imagine how good they could be. But I think Russell would go here, and I actually think, even with Okafor or Anthony Towns going there, that'd be a great fit, but this would be just as great of a fit. They need a point guard because they made a move during the season that I really didn't think was the right move, trading away Michael Carter-Williams. I know they were struggling at the time, and they might have been trying to tank to try to get a great draft pick. But, I mean, you traded a guy in Michael Carter-Williams who I think is going to be a really, really good player in this league. He fits the point guard type mantra. He can score. He can pass the ball very well. and I think he's going to fit out well in Milwaukee. So they need a point guard, and if Russell is there's no doubt they're taking him. I mean, watching D'Angelo Russell, the guy's a monster at the point guard position. He really controls the ball very well. He's got great hands. I mean, of course, you know, he can pass the ball very well. He's built offensively. He sort of reminds me a little bit when I watch him of Derrick Rose. Not quite the same player as Derrick Rose, not quite as dominant as Derrick Rose in college, but the way he plays, the way he holds himself on the court, he's a quiet leader. He's not that type of guy that's going to go out there and be around screaming on the court and yelling, but the dude really just goes out there and plays great basketball. And, you know, these days in the NBA, you have to have a great point guard in order to win games. I think that's what every team has shown, really besides the Miami Heat, because Mario Chalmers was never a great point guard. But, you know, I think D'Angelo Russell fits well at this spot, and if he goes to Philadelphia, they have a piece there that they can try to build around with these other young guys. If Noel can find a way to get on the court and stay healthy, and if they can get some of these other guys to work together and to play with each other. And then we get to number 4. This might be the second most talked about draft pick, and at this point, it may be the most talked about draft pick just because Phil Jackson has made it the most talked about draft pick. I'm a Knicks fan, and with this draft pick, if it's going like I have my big board going, we need to trade the pick. We got to look to trade the pick, and I think they would ultimately look to trade the pick. But when with the mock draft that I did, there are no trades, so the Knicks have to take someone at 4. Now there are a couple of options here. Kristaps Porzingis, as we mentioned earlier, would be there. The power forward on the inside, Durant-like supposedly, and the thing about him is he really liked New York when he came there. He said that he could see himself playing in New York under Phil Jackson. He loves the environment, and that's something that, you know, I think Knicks fans like, but at the same time it is worrisome because the Knicks have experimented with foreign players before, the most notable, of course, being Danilo Gallinari, who never really worked out for the Knicks, played well in Denver, but tore his ACL a couple of years ago, and now just isn't the same player. I don't think he's even, I don't even know if he's playing anymore out there in Denver. But, you know, I think they've seen these draft picks with guys like him, guys like Jordan Hill, and they see, you know, they get scared of players like that, especially big men on the inside, because that's where we've gone with them before, and it just hasn't worked out. You know, but I think Porzingis could be a little bit different. I'm hoping he would be a little bit different. But there's always a chance also that he wouldn't come over straight from Latvia. Now, he said that he loves New York, so many people believe if he's selected by the Knicks, he would come over immediately, which the Knicks would definitely hope if they do take him. But there are other options they could go with. They could go with Emmanuel Mudiay, a point guard from China. He was originally committed to play basketball at SMU here in the United States. And he would fit what the Knicks need. They do need a point guard for sure. There is no one out there at the point guard position for the New York Knicks that's even close to being a superstar at all. I mean, they've got some good young players in Larkin that can play point guard and Langston Galloway, but these guys are not point guards that are for the future. These are guys that are there now, can be bench players, but they need to find themselves a good point guard, and I believe Mudiay could be the guy. And another one is Justice Winslow, Okafor's teammate out at Duke, a small forward. The guy can shoot the rock very well, of course. You know, he's kind of built to where he can play in between. He's not really a deadly three-point shooter, but he can knock down threes, and he's not really a guy that can drive inside, you know, all the time. But, you know, I think he's got that mindset to where he can be an all-around great small forward. He's a guy with a lot of potential. He was a true freshman, so he's got a lot of room to grow and to build. The only thing I did not like about him, and I'm, you know, this is not me talking as a Carolina fan. I watched when he played against us, and he got frustrated when fouls started adding up on him. When he would get a bad foul or there's a bad play, he gets frustrated and then starts taking bad fouls, which I don't really like, just because, you know, you don't want to see that mindset out of any player anywhere, even in the NBA or college basketball. But, you know, I think he's definitely got a lot of upside. He's just got to be able to control himself a little bit better on the court. And they said they could go with him. Now, I have them taking Porzingis He's still on the board at 4, and Russell is not. If Russell is there, the Knicks will take Russell. But if Porzingis is there at 4 and Russell's not, I think they have to take Porzingis. They need a power forward inside. The Knicks really need someone everywhere, but this would be the right pick here, and I think the Knicks wouldn't regret taking him as much as some of these other players. We've seen these foreign players before, so it is worrisome, but I think Porzingis might be a little different, and if he does get drafted by the Knicks, I definitely hope so. So on to number 5. That means Orlando's on the clock now. No Porzingis, which they are high on as well, so he's gone. So that means, here you got Winslow, and I think Mudiay would be the other guy that they would go after. I have them taking Winslow. I think they like his potential at the small forward. And once again, the Magic are the type of team that needs someone at every position, except for shooting guard. Excuse me. That's the only position they don't have a real dire need. They need someone to go with Victor Oladipo. Down low at center, they're also in a decent position, or I don't know, maybe he plays power forward. I consider him a center in Nikola Vucevic. I think they have the right pieces to build for the future, and if they can get a guy like Winslow in there that has upside, has potential, he can come in there and really learn with this team just like these other players are. I think he has the potential to be a good piece out there in Orlando, and they could turn into a pretty good team. And I think he fits their mindset. I know Mudiay would be a solid fit there as well, but I think Winslow is a little bit better than Mudiay with his talent and his upside. So I think Orlando can see that. But either way they go with that pick will be a solid pick. And then we move on to Sacramento. At this point, with Winslow being off the board, Mudiay is still there. I would say they would probably go after him, but there are rumors that the Kings are trying to trade to get Ty Lawson from Denver, who picks next. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but right now, if we're going on everyone keeping their picks and this pick's staying exactly the same, I would say right now they would take Mudiay because they need a point guard. Mudiay is definitely talented. I mean, he was one of the highest-rated recruits coming out of high school a year ago and was committed to SMU. As I said, he went overseas to play in China, which I think may actually help him more than if he had stayed and played at SMU. I think it definitely helped his draft stock. I think if he would have went to SMU and left this year, he probably would have been maybe in the 20s, maybe even the 30s and into the second round. But because he went overseas, played in China, he learned with professionals, he got paid as well. So he's going to know how to handle the money when he gets to the NBA. Now, it's not going to be anywhere, he's going to make a lot more in the NBA, of course. But I think being in a professional league is definitely going to help him, especially as a point guard, because that's a position you need to be seasoned in and you need to learn in. And college basketball, it's not... it's a lot of young kids, a lot of amateur kids compared to some of these professional leagues. So I think Mudiay will come in ready to go. And he'll definitely be a good fit out there in Sacramento, with them trying to make all these types of moves. But if they were to stay the same, him with DeMarcus Cousins and some of the other young guys that they've got out there that they could put him in there with, if they maybe keep Rudy Gay or what they're going to do, he could be a good fit out there, and that'd be a point guard that can facilitate the ball and try to get it into the hands of some of these better players. And from there, now we talk Denver, 7. Now, again, they are in these trade talks right now. Them and Sacramento are extremely active. They're the most active teams on the market, maybe besides Charlotte. But at 7, there's a group of players now after you get past the top 6. The top 6 is almost solidified. Now, there's only one guy that I think could sneak in there, and that's Mario Hezonja, I think is how you pronounce his name. Hezonja or something like that. I'm sorry if I'm botching that name. But I think he could be a fit definitely in Denver. I have them actually taking him there. He's a shooting guard. He fits their skill set. They love these foreign shooting guards, and I think he is definitely a guy that can knock down shots. I've seen a little bit of video on him. He's not a whole lot, and he's a good shooter, and that's something that Denver likes to see, especially in the style of offense that they play. I don't know how they're going to really fare under their new coach. I know he came over from the Keys. I can't remember his name at this point. I don't know why I can't remember any of these names right now. But I think if you can get someone in there that can knock down shots like Hezonja, I think it's going to. He's definitely a good fit out there. If they end up keeping Ty Lawson and Kenneth Faried, they could use a shooter that can knock down shots on the outside that Lawson can get the ball to, and then. I mean, you still have Faried on the inside, so you have the inside presence and the outside presence in Hezonja, and I think that would definitely help Denver. In a Western Conference that now we're starting to show you have to be able to knock down shots in order to have any success. I mean, you've seen it with both the teams that made the Western Conference Finals with Golden State and Houston. They have the ability to knock down shots more than anything. So that is something you have to have out in the Western Conference now. And I think Denver definitely realizes that, and I think they go Hezonja there. Now we get to 8, and that is Detroit. Now, there are a lot of people that think Detroit's going to go small forward here. They'll go Stanley Johnson. I'm of a different belief. I do think that Stanley Johnson is a great player, but I don't think that's their most needed position. I think they need a center for sure because Greg Monroe's not coming back. We're pretty much sure on that. I know the Knicks are one of his favorite destinations. So is L.A. Pretty much whoever loses out on the Mark Gasol sweepstakes is going to end up probably getting him. So Denver needs a center. There's 2 centers on the board at this point that I would consider here. Myles Turner is a good player, but I don't think he's in consideration at this high. Willy Cauley-Stein is the first one. And the biggest thing about Willy Cauley-Stein, and this dude could really go anywhere else in the draft. I think he could go inside the top 3. You never really know whoever doesn't get Okafor and Anthony Towns. But the best thing about about Willy Cauley-Stein is his ability to play defense. He's a shutdown center. He has the ability really to make you fear going inside. I mean, he's so big. He's a shot blocker. One of the best I've seen in a long time on the inside defensively. He can rebound the ball very well. Now there's a huge knock on his game, and that is his offensive game. He has no shooting range. It's very similar to DeAndre Jordan type shooting range, where he's not going to knock down shots anywhere outside of the paint. And unless he's right at the basket, there's a good chance it's not going to go in. Free throw shooting, he's all right. He's better than Okafor, but he's not great. But if you're going Cauley-Stein, you're going defense. This is not an offensive draft pick. And for Detroit, they do need offense, but I think he's that talented that they can't pass up on a defensive guy like that. And that's what I mean. He could go anywhere in the draft because he's got defense. He's got some of the best defensive talent in the entire draft. I think he might be the best defender in this draft. And, I could see him going at 4 to the Knicks also. I would love to have him in New York. I could see him even going 3 to Philadelphia because they have the guys that are there that can score. Now, they might need to find someone in free agency, but that's probably not going to happen. That's not as luxurious of a place as some of these other teams. But, I mean, if they really feel like they could be sold on him, I wouldn't be extremely critical of them taking Willy Cauley-Stein. And from there, we move on to Charlotte at 9. Now, we don't know if this pick will still be Charlotte's. They've been extremely active on the trading scene. They've been, I would say, the most active team. I think they've been involved in 3 trades already, and there's a rumored 4th one that they're possibly involved in. But once again, we're keeping it the same. They pick at 9, and they could use someone inside. Another inside presence to go with Zeller. Don't know if they're going to get back Al Jefferson. There are rumors that he wanted to opt out so he could sign a bigger contract, but you just really don't know. And I think they have to take here. There's 2 guys on the board. Again, Stanley Johnson would be in play here, but I think they have to take Frank Kaminsky. If you lose Al Jefferson, you have to find someone to take over that spot. Kaminsky is pretty. I mean, he's a good player inside. Now, the only thing I'm a little worried about with him, he doesn't really fit the center position in my mind. I think he's more of a power forward just from watching the way he plays. First of all, to be a center, he's way too small compared to some of these other guys that we have in the draft, guys like Okafor and Cauley-Stein. They're built like centers. He's not. He's a little more thin. He's got a really good jump shot. I mean, he can hit threes. And, if he's the center, the guy that I would kind of compare him to was an old Utah Jazz center, Mehmet Okur. I think he's a lot better of an inside player than Okur was, but he has the range that Okur had. I think he's a good player, definitely, but seeing him at the center position would be tough. I would say you'd move Zeller to center and you'd put him at power forward. But the only thing is, he is tall enough to play the center position. Kaminsky, I know watching the way he played in the tournament when he played against some of these tougher players, he was a little bit thrown off. It didn't seem like he was able to really outmuscle these guys. So that's one knock that I have on him. But great shooter, as I said. His defense is there's potential there. Of course, at the free throw line, he's a great free throw shooter, so that's always a plus to have. And he's just a guy that can win ball games. I mean, he led them to a national championship, so he's clearly doing something right. All those things that I said about him, they are knocks on him, of course, but I think he's a great player. I think he's a good fit in Charlotte, and if they believe that they cannot get Al Jefferson, I think they have to, for sure, take they have to take a center, and if Kaminsky's there, they have to take him. From there, we move to number 10. This would be the Miami pick. Once again here, there are a lot of ways they could go, and this week there was another option that they might have to consider after Dwayne Wade threw a humongous turn of events for Miami. He said that he had mutual interest, as well as the Lakers did, about maybe going out to Los Angeles. So if he ends up leaving, that's their best player off the table. I know Chris Bosh is there, but I don't know how much this heart problem for Chris Bosh may affect him. At this point, I would kind of hope that Chris Bosh does retire, because if it is a serious heart issue, we don't want him out there playing with it. We do not want to see anyone die on the court. That's definitely not what we want to see. And that's my wish. Just stay healthy, Chris Bosh, please. Please do. I didn't like you during the LeBron era, and I'm still not a huge fan of you, but I do respect you as a basketball player, and we don't want anything to happen. So, but back to the draft. If they do lose Dwayne Wade, they've got to find another great player. I know Shabazz Napier's there and could possibly take over that spot, and that would work, but they could also look there. I would say probably stick with Napier. And where I would go is Stanley Johnson's still on the board. He's the best player left. Miami needs a small forward here. He's not even close to replacing LeBron James. Don't even think about any of those thoughts coming into your head. Stanley Johnson can score the basketball. He really can. And he's a great player. But, at times, when he wasn't able to score the ball, it was bad. He was not able to score the ball at all. When he's off, he is off. And when he's off, he gets real frustrated. I saw it in the Utah game. I watched the game they played up in Utah. That place was going nuts. And he struggled in that game and never really seemed to be able to gain anything. And when he's frustrated out on the court, he starts taking bad shots. You can just see he gets down on the court. He's got to be able to shake that off, because in the NBA, you're going to have games like that. There's no one that comes into the NBA and automatically is a superstar, maybe besides LeBron James and Anthony Davis. You're going to have off nights, so he's got to be able to shake that off. But I think he's a good fit out in Miami. He is the best small forward, I think, in this draft. I do have him better than Winslow, but the upside for Winslow is why people are taking him. He's definitely a better scorer, I think, than most of the guys that are ahead of him on this draft board. But as I said, the demeanor issue, he's not really a great defender, so that could be definitely something to watch. But again, another guy that's very young, got a lot of upside, and I really like him as a basketball player. I do think he's going to be a great basketball player, and he would be a great fit out in Miami. Eric Spoelstra would really love to have him out there. And then we move on to number 11, the Indiana Pacers. Now, they have a couple of areas they have to go as well, but I think they could ultimately go point guard. I like they do really need a point guard there. George Hill is a good point guard, but he's not a superstar point guard. They need someone that can facilitate the ball around that team. with guys like Paul George. We don't know who else they're going to have because David West did opt out of his contract. I believe Roy Hibbert's a free agent, so they're going to lose some players there, possibly. They may end up bringing back Hibbert. David West, I don't think, is going to come back because he opted out of the contract. I don't know if they're going to try to re-sign him for more money or if he's going to move on somewhere else. So with that, I would say they do have to go point guard. I have them taking Cameron Payne, the point guard from Murray State. And this guy, he's a really good player. He took over for Isaiah Cannon, who was a great player too, but went a lot lower in the draft. But I think Payne's a little more skilled than him. He's got a little more point guard ability, the type of point guard that you're looking for in today's game. And he really fits the bill here. He's a little bit of a better defender than Cannon was. Cannon was pure offense. Cameron Payne's a little bit of a different player. Now, the only thing about Cameron Payne, he did suffer an injury to his hand. I think it was one of his fingers. He does not have to have surgery, but he suffered it during one of the team workouts. So that's something to keep an eye on. That might be what drops him down the board. But I have him going 11 to Indiana. They really do need a point guard, and I think he is the best point guard because he has a defensive skill set that a lot of the other point guards in this draft really don't have. Besides the top two guys. But I think he's got really great potential. He's a great player, and as he said, Indiana needs a they need a point guard. They really do. They need one badly, and he would work out well there. Definitely a guy that I could see Paul George liking. Because he plays defense just like Paul George does. Paul George is a fantastic defender. But still some question marks out there. They could go center. They could go power forward if they don't believe that West is coming back. But I think they believe they can get both of those guys back, which, maybe a little off. But, got to keep an eye on them. They could be an interesting team maybe to trade up or trade down either way. And from there we move on to number 12, the Utah Jazz. They actually did have a good year last year. We're kind of going under the radar, unnoticed. But they had a good year. They kept Gordon Hayward last year, and I think that was a huge keep for them. And that's definitely a guy that's a leader on that team and makes them a good team. You got guys like Trey Burke who's still there. So they need a piece inside is where I have them going. I think Myles Turner, the center from Texas, fits well. They have the outside shooting and the mid-range shooting. Now they need a guy on the inside that can really be a great defender, be a bully. They haven't had one really since Carlos Boozer left town. So I think Turner fits in well there. Turner is a really good player out of Texas. He was the reason they were any good this year, really, when you watch them play. He was the star on the court. They've always had really good centers, but this guy's a little bit different. He's an inside guy, of course. He's he has a bigger body than most of the guys in this draft. He's a bully in the post, like I said. He plays very good defense, which is definitely something they could use. Doesn't have a whole lot of range to him, but, that's not what they're really, you don't really need a whole lot of that in the NBA nowadays. Your center really is supposed to be an inside guy. Many of the teams that have had success in the Western Conference have guys inside, maybe except Golden State. They pretty much, they could just throw 5 guards out on the floor and they would just find ways to win games. But, he fits what they want, what they need on the inside, and Turner is that good of a player, so I think he could really make a difference out there, and that could be what puts them over the hump and gets them into the playoffs out in Utah. And then from there, it's on to number 13 to Phoenix. This is another talk that there have been trade talks here, but not a whole lot, not as much as some of the other ones we see higher in the draft. But if they keep it, I definitely think they need. They have pieces that they need, but I think they go small forward. Stanley Johnson is already off the board. They're really high on him, and I think they would really love to have him. But with him off the board, I think they go Kelly Oubre Jr. From Kansas, and Oubre Jr. He was their best player this year, the most consistent player. I wouldn't go best player, actually. I'd say the most consistent player that they had this year. And they need him to play. They need him out there in Phoenix. I mean, I don't really know how Phoenix found a way to get up near the top where they did. Even after they got rid of Goran Dragic in a trade to Miami, they were still finding ways to win games. And they didn't really have a whole lot of talent there. Oubre Jr. is a good player, and I think he definitely fits there in Phoenix. It gives them another piece in a Western Conference where at the bottom now it's starting to fluctuate. There's a little bit of room. It's not going to be the same teams locked in there every year, with teams getting older, like the Spurs possibly. They just keep getting older. Dallas, I think, is going to take a step back. So there's a chance for Phoenix. They need to add a good piece, and Oubre Jr. is a good shooter. He's a pretty good defender. And the best thing about him, again, is potential. Upside on him is high. And he's definitely a guy that's learned a lot. Just from watching their games last year, he really is that type of guy that's kind of a quiet presence. He's not the most notable guy on the court. He's not the superstar talent. He's not the guy that's, flashy. He's just out there to play a game of basketball, and that's what I think is so great about him, and he fits out there in Phoenix with a lot of those guys that have that same type of mindset. And then we're on to Oklahoma City. Now, this is an interesting draft pick here. Oklahoma City did not make the playoffs. They're in the lottery, and there are still a lot of great players here. They want to get a compliment to Russell Westbrook and to Kevin Durant. If they can get a great player in there, that may be the difference between losing Durant and keeping Durant. And also, it could be the difference between losing Westbrook and keeping Westbrook down the line. I think there are a lot of areas they need, but they have not had a great shooting guard, or even a decent shooting guard, really, since James Harden left town. Devin Booker is on the board from Kentucky, and he is a great shooter. Once again, a true freshman, loads of potential. Not really a huge defender, just from watching him. Kentucky was great defensively, but watching him, he wasn't the star. He's not like a lockdown guy, but he played decent enough defense. He's definitely got a lot of upside. Again, not flashy offensively, just a guy that can really shoot the ball, just like everyone else on that Kentucky team. They can all shoot the ball. And Booker really fits the style they want. Now, he's not going to be James Harden. He's not going to sit there and light you up for 40-something a game. Now, he didn't do that out, of course, in Oklahoma City. He was really kind of a six-man, kind of an afterthought almost out there in Oklahoma City. So, I think Booker would be a great pick here with all the potential that he's got. He's a young guy that could fit in well with Westbrook and learn from him. He could fit in well with Durant, who's kind of got that nurturing type feel to him. So that will work out pretty well for Oklahoma City, and they really do need a shooting guard very, very badly out there. And this is going to be the last pick that I'm going to do on this one. I'll do 15 on this video, and then I'm going to move over and do the next 15 because I may run over. It's only an hour time limit on these videos that they allow me on YouTube. So the last pick that I'm going to do on this video will be Atlanta. The Atlanta Hawks, of course, they got new jerseys. I don't know if anyone saw that, going a little off topic here, but they are pretty much just disgusting. I like the black, I like the red on the jerseys and the white, of course, but they took out the gold and they brought in a neon green. I could not believe they did that. That's just an awful look for the Hawks. Definitely not what they needed. I think they should have just kept the gold in the numbering, and it would have looked pretty good. So, terrible. But they've got the number 15 draft pick, and they do need a decent amount in this draft, because there is potential that they're going to lose Damari Carroll and Paul Millsap this offseason. Now, they weren't the superstars on this team. Jeff Teague and Al Horford, of course, were, and Kyle Korver. But, at the same time, losing these guys will definitely hurt. So I think they need to get someone. I would go power forward for sure. There are a lot of good power forwards on the board at this point. You got guys like Bobby Portis and Montrezl Harrell, but I think they go Trey Lyles, the power forward from Kentucky. Now, Lyles, this is another one of those picks. This pick is really about potential. Lyles was good, but he was definitely not a great player out there in Kentucky. Now, there were so many other great players. We've already mentioned two of them, Booker and Anthony Towns. Both the Harrison twins played, so there was not a whole lot of room for him to get the ball. Now, I think he still is one of the best players in this draft because the upside on him, he's got really good shooting range, especially for a power forward. Now, defensively, there is something there. I think all of these guys at Kentucky have great, good enough defending. They defended very well last year, so I think he's got that potential on the inside. He's a little bit of a different style power forward than Anthony Towns is. Anthony Towns is a little more built than he was. Lyles is a thin player. I believe he played small forward when he was on the court last year. So he's not really that inside guy that's going to beat and bang on you. He's more of an outside. He's kind of similar to what Kaminsky was. But Kaminsky could dead down in the post and play. I think Lyles could do the same thing. That's who I think he's similar to Kaminsky. So I see him definitely as a solid pick. Again, upside pick here for Atlanta. They could definitely use a power forward to go along on the inside with Al Horford. So I think Lyles could fit well out there in Atlanta, and he would definitely love playing under Mike Bunzinger, I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm not definitely botched that one, but he would fit under that San Antonio Spurs type offense. So definitely a good pick there for Atlanta. And with that, I'm going to wrap up this video here. This is the first 15 picks of the NBA draft, so I've got any of those teams that if your team picks in the top 15, definitely watch this video. I encourage you to watch the next one too. I'm going to talk I'm going to go through the last 15 picks. I'll talk a little bit about some of the guys that are still on the board after I get through that for the second round that would be available in my mock draft. And I'll talk some about the trade rumors going around and a little bit about the guys opting out and going into free agency. So thank you for watching this video, and please go over to the next one to watch 16 through 30.